$35 million. I mean, he may not know the difference between $35 million and $85 million.
Those comments were made by Fox Sports Ohio's Chris Welsh. The topic of discussion via Fangraphs, a 7-year contract extension worth $35 million with 2 team options at $7 million a year with a $4 million buyout, taking the total possible contract term up to 9 years and $45 million. Welsh's comments are flawed, they are flat out wrong, and also troublesome, especially when they are broadcast on a Major League Baseball team's outlet. So here is what he said, part of the transcript. Albies came from a very poor background. He's from Curacao. And when somebody offers you $35 million, I mean, he may not know the difference between $35 million and $85 million. So Welsh, what he's doing here is blaming Albies' background, because he comes from a Dutch Caribbean island for mishandling his own value. To the credit of many on social media, they blasted Welsh, and he was part of it. To the Fox Sports Ohio analyst who thinks Ozzie Albies doesn't understand the difference between $35 million and $85 million, these are the languages he speaks. English, Spanish, Dutch, Papiamento. He probably understands it better than you do, buddy. Trusted and credible MLB writer Keith Law, who predicted the Royals would win because of their farm system, wrote this: "What in the actual? It is so very hard to be on live TV and not do a racism." Awful Announcing, who brought this story to my attention, printed this sentence, which I wholeheartedly agree with, and here's what it was. "It's not necessarily wrong to suggest that Albies might prefer to take a guaranteed smaller amount of money now, rather than gamble that he'll be healthy and able to cash in free agency later. The problem is, Welsh's preference was to go after his Albies' poor background, the geographical location, and to question his own intelligence. Albies' intelligence that led to all of this backlash. And by the way, it is completely and totally warranted. Chris Welsh deserves this criticism, which also reminds me of a certain someone who was pulled off of the airwaves for having a similar opinion.
Like, I've never bought into that baseball's just too complex. Really? A third of the sport is from the Dominican Republic.
Although he apologized, albeit reluctantly, because of the backlash that Colin Cowherd did face, namely from Dominican-born players and others in the media, it was too little too late. Again, rightfully so. My problem with this is racists like this are like an onion. Once you peel part of the onion, the true colors start to come out, and there are even more offenses and even more history. Like Colin Cowherd, for example. He had racial undertones when it came to John Wall, and many called him out for it. What makes this Reds-Braves incident worse is Albies had to answer for it over and over and over and over again in the clubhouse, post-game, a conversation he did not welcome and had to be dragged into involuntarily. This is not something that he wanted to do. This is not something that he wants to discuss. So my question is, what happens to Welsh? At the very least, an apology. The other thing is, baseball is such a long game. I know they're emphasizing pace of play and they want to bring the pace of play down. It's still a game that is broadcast for well over 2 hours. This was not a rush commentary. You could take your time thinking about it, and yet he still put this phrasing together. At the very least, an apology. The bare minimum, in my view. The question is, what does Ozzie Albies want out of this? He is the one offended. He is the one who had his intelligence questioned because of where he was born. I'd like to hear his opinion on this, a truthful opinion. And if the Reds were right, they would sideline Chris Welsh until they figure out the perfect punishment for what he did. Because what he did was completely unacceptable, especially in 2019.